Love, light, and blessings. This is Shamanic Awak Priestess here, and I'm making a video today. I had oral surgery on Wednesday because I was having swelling for like since Monday, and I was kind of working and everything like that. And then by Wednesday, it was just too much because Tuesday night I had like a fever. And so I ended up having to get emergency dental work done. So I didn't do any readings Thursday or Wednesday, and then finally returned back to work Friday night. So I was recovering. My face was really, really swollen. I still have some swelling, but it's gone down a lot. Because before that it was really, really bad, and it hurt to eat. I didn't eat for like 2 days, and it hurt to talk. And so, of course, I took kind of a little bit of a break from social media and just kind of allowed myself to recuperate. So I haven't been able to watch anybody's videos or even post videos of my own. And like I said, I took like 2 days off of doing readings as well. So I had to take kind of a break and start the healing process. I mean, the tooth was really, really bad. I didn't have dental insurance for like 2 years, so I had to pay out of pocket. I found a really nice doctor, dentist, and he was affordable and he was good. I even did a reading on if he would do the procedure well, and he did. So, and all that kind of stuff. So I made sure I left him like a 5-star review. And the same price he quoted me over the phone, when I went down there, he that price was what I paid. So I was happy about that because I was paying cash and stuff. And as anybody who's ever paid for dental work, it's expensive. But I got the tooth fixed, got it pulled, and I'm very happy about that because in the long run, I know that it will work out in my favor because I had something called a hot tooth, and basically it kind of repels antibiotics. So as soon as he was done giving me the pain meds, which I didn't feel him pull the tooth out. By the time I got out of the dentist office, I felt everything because like the pain meds wore off because of how severe my infection was. I mean, my whole jaw was infected, and he had to put me on Vicodin, and I tried to use it sparingly, which caused me to be in a lot of pain. But I always try to be careful with those kind of medications because I know they could be addictive and things like that. So, but I'm feeling much better. I went back to work last night and I was happy to do so. I didn't do anything spiritual for like a week. I pretty much just was not feeling good. So, I did readings and stuff like that as much as I could, but I didn't take on the workload that I usually take on. So, I have a lot of readings to catch up on and things like that, which I will be doing throughout this weekend and that kind of stuff. So that's why I am making a video kind of between breaks here. And a video that I wanted to talk about for a while now, and that was Hereditary Witch versus Book Witches. Because I know I was saying traditional witch versus book witches, which is that wasn't the proper title. It's actually hereditary witches. So I wanted to start with the definition of what is a hereditary witch. So a hereditary witch is a witch that's born into a tradition. Okay, someone who's born into a tradition of any type of spiritual tradition. And these traditions are not written in books. Okay, these are traditions that someone in your family, an elder from your family, passes down to that person orally. So they learn oral traditions, they learn about the practice orally. Some people write it down in maybe a notebook or something like that. In my case, my mom has a notebook, but her mother passed it down orally, and so on and so forth. So I come from a family of hereditary witches. Like I said, I could date mine's back into the mid 1800s. Um, because of slavery, I can't go back further than that, unfortunately. But yes, so I am what you would call a hereditary witch. So hereditary witches are taught firsthand a lot of the way they family would practice. And traditions can vary from family to family because even if somebody does a certain spell, like for instance in hoodoo, somebody might hoodoo someone, let's say cow's tongue. There's things you can do with a cow's tongue, but in somebody else's house, they might do the same spell, but they might be different ingredients or different things because again, these traditions are passed orally. So the same idea, but everybody kind of adds as time goes by, their own take, their own thing, and stuff like that, which continues to kind of change the practice, but the root of it is still the same. So the way that I practice is a little different than the way my mom practices, but it's the same practice. It's the same spirits that she passed on to me, that her mother passed on to her, and some additional newer spirits, and things of that nature. Then you have something called a book witch, which is someone that maybe necessarily did not grow up in a tradition. They get their knowledge from pretty much books that people have written, okay? um, and they're taking little bits and pieces of things that they are reading about. So you have some people that they didn't have the luxury or the privilege of having witches in their family, or they could be a hereditary witch, but unfortunately that person in their family wasn't able to teach them anything or didn't teach them anything. Because there's people that had witches in their family, but they turn into, maybe they turn to Christianity, or they turn into a different religion that maybe that religion looked down on their practice, so they stop practicing. So the knowledge kind of dies with that person. And so this person, even though they have a lineage to it, may have to look for things like books to learn about witchcraft from somebody else's perspective. So that will be the difference. One person who actually gets it from a tradition that's passed down, and someone who, a book witch, someone who kind of is starting their own tradition, reading about other tradition through books. And each side of this has their ups and downs. So the ups and downs of a hereditary witch is sometimes when somebody comes from a tradition, they look down on someone who might read books, because even though I'm a hereditary witch, I have over 90 books on different practices and things like that, because I like to know why my ancestors practice in a certain way. And even though I have elders that have taught me things, I do like to read the works of others, because I like to expand my knowledge, and I like to see where historically this practice may have come from. I like to get ideas on spells. So, I do read books, but I have been taught hands on. You know what I mean? And I feel like sometimes the danger of being a hereditary witch is maybe looking down on someone that may have gotten their knowledge from books, because we have to understand everybody learned it from somewhere. Even the person that taught you, they have to have learned it from somebody, and so on and so forth. You know what I mean? And it's a wonderful thing when you can actually have somebody teach you things at hands on and teach you your family's tradition and connects you to your ancestors. But not everybody can do that. You know what I mean? Maybe that person came from a Christian family, but they just don't feel like that's their path, or from a Muslim family, or from a religion that looks down on witchcraft. And maybe that person just feels like, I feel like a calling to it. And so they have to buy books to learn stuff, because they got to learn it from somewhere. The danger of, or the downfall of book witchcraft is that you're getting the perspective of somebody else. And unfortunately, there's a lot of misleading information. For instance, someone asked me the other day, do you have any good books on Santeria or voodoo? And I said recommendations, and I said no. I have read several books on it, but they're not accurate from what I've learned. You have people that you could tell never grew up in the tradition, that are trying to make money off someone wanting to know about that path, and they give misinformation, and they don't give people the proper warning. So when people start invoking these spirits, 9 times out of 10, you're actually invoking the wrong spirits that are actually wreaking havoc in your life. And there's countless clients that have come to me that were practicing stuff that wasn't like properly explained in a book, and they just go up conjuring a bunch of stuff, and then I have to clean up their messes. I might have to do an exorcism. I might have to teach them how to get rid of certain spirits that were misleading, that have only wreaked havoc in their life, or they conjured up a spirit a certain way, and that spirit is thinking that you had proper training or you were initiated into the tradition, and because certain protocols weren't met, they get upset. So you might even actually upset a spirit if you conjure them up for the wrong reasons or in an improper way, because again, Santeria and Voodoo are practices. These are lineage practices and traditional practices, a tradition. It's a living tradition. So there's certain ways you would go about serving certain spirits from a religion. And if you don't know it and a book is giving you misinformation and kind of like, yeah, you can do whatever you want, you could actually wreak havoc into your life and call in spirits that um, may pretend to be a spirit, or that spirit itself that might be upset that they feel some type of way that you disrespected them, again, because there's a certain way that you will serve these spirits. So, or they'll give you, like I said, misinformation, which can be dangerous. So, um, when we're reading books and things like that, if it's a living tradition, my recommendation has always been find someone who's actually from that tradition, who's reputable, do your research, and it will be better to go under their mentorship than actually try to practice things from a book. Unless you actually grew up in the tradition like I did, and you know what's, excuse my language, bullshit and what's actually legitimate, then you could kind of tell the difference and stay away from danger. Because you even have hoodoo books that are a lot of misinformation about hoodoo out there as well. People making up stuff and then people practicing it and then wreaking havoc in their life because there's so much misinformation in books. So, always read books with a grain of salt. And if something doesn't feel right to you, that it's better for you not to do that. I always recommend people with trying to learn any tradition to kind of go slowly. I always tell people, even for a living tradition, you do not have to get initiated the first day. Okay. You have to be careful with that. And I'm going to do a video about that too. About initiation. That's not always necessary either. And I'm going to elaborate on that further because I know that's going to be a very controversial video, which I don't know if I'm going to disable the comments on it or not. I don't know yet, but um, basically, people have the misconception that you have to get initiated to pray to a saint. You, the way that I was taught was that you will get initiation if you're planning to do work for others. So if you're planning to be an elder or a spiritual leader of the religion, then yes, you would get initiated. But the way that I grew up, and I grew up in the Bronx, I grew up on the islands, botanicas, santeria, voodoo was something that was like, I didn't know what it was when I was growing up. They were very like, there was always stuff going on in my home and in my family. And there were people that practiced it, that grew up in the tradition, that would not get initiated. Why? Because they already grew up in the tradition. So they were already praying to the Orishas and things of that nature. However, when they wanted to do work for others, when you start charging people for work, when you start mentoring people from work, that's when you need to be initiated because it's kind of like a church. In a church, the congregation gives honor and glory to their deity, to Jesus, to God, things of that nature. Everybody can pray to God and Jesus, but the pastor is in charge of guiding that church and that spiritual community to get closer to God and Jesus. It's kind of the same thing. It's kind of like your santero, your babalao, your mambo, your bukul, your hugan is your spiritual leader, and they help you when you're having spiritual issues. They're the person you go to help you with your spiritual afflictions and things of that nature. They will perform rituals for you, they will perform healings for you. And that person who's doing that for you has to be able to deal with a lot of conditions. They also have to be able to know the mysteries of these spirits and have their full power unleashed. And that's not going to happen unless you're initiated. To get the full power of an Orisha or Loa or things of that nature in these living traditions, you do have to get initiated. But that doesn't mean that you have to get initiated just to pray to them if you're not planning to do work outside yourself, or if you're just trying to have a personal relationship with them, you don't have to necessarily be initiated. It's when you're trying to be a spiritual leader or guide other people, then you have to be careful because you can be giving people misinformation. You know, it's different what you do in your house and it's different what you do outside your house. And that's why I saw it necessary for me to get initiated in more than one tradition, because when I got called to do work for other people, I wanted to make sure I knew what I was doing. Because if you don't know what you're doing, you could mess up somebody's life. And then karmically and spiritually, you are responsible for what you do to that person and the consequences of that. because there's certain ways that you would do work for people. There's certain ways that you work with the spirits, because once you're initiated, you're part of that family. They recognize you. You know, it's a marriage. It's a commitment, for a lifelong commitment for you to serve that spirit, and knowing that you're going to be spiritually responsible for other people. So, but I will talk more about that in a later video. But I just wanted to talk about the differences between a hereditary person and a book person. There's good and bad in both, you know. And I'm not saying one is better than the other. I feel like whether you were born in the tradition or not, I feel like you can get a lot of things from books. And I don't look down on people who read books and learn about their spiritual path, because at the end of the day, it's their intention and you're trying to learn something. And I think that's a good thing. I think there's never anything wrong with trying to expand our knowledge. um, just be careful when you are reading stuff. Make sure that the source is reliable, because there are people out there that try to take advantage of people. They didn't grow up in the tradition. They're trying to make money. So just be careful, because in Santeria and Voodoo, most practitioners aren't going to really write a book and tell you the secrets, because it is an initiated tradition, and it is a living tradition. And when people get initiated, they're sworn to secrecy. Is why there's a lot of videos I don't make, because you are sworn to certain secrecies that you're not really allowed to tell outsiders. So when we're looking for books of that tradition, just know you're not really going to get the full. You're not going to learn Santeria and Voodoo from a book, like the real stuff. I'm just being honest with you, because of, like I said, it is kind of a closed tradition. So it's very important that you do make sure you get the right mentors and stuff like that. Okay. Much love, light, and blessings. Thank you so much for watching this video. And until the next video, guys, love you guys very, very much. And I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.